Congressman Brad Wenstrup, Republican from Ohio, is with us now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. As you and I were talking off air, I know you like I do to deconnect a little bit over the weekend. So here we are. You got to get up early on Monday and talk to the radio guy, and then you're getting on a plane headed to D.C. You got to get right back into it, but I hope you had a great weekend with your family.
Oh, I did, for sure. But the work never leaves. It never ends. The phone's always going off, but there's always stuff we can do, but you got to give some time to the family or else it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, the big news is the debt ceiling and raising that. Were you satisfied with the renegotiated deal between the speaker and the president?
Yeah, I think satisfied is probably a good word. Not overwhelming joy, but we certainly got things that the alternative would not have provided, for sure. If you look back on this, at the end of the last term, when the Democrats had the House and the Senate and the White House, they could have increased the debt ceiling on their own back then for an extended period of time. They didn't do it on purpose. They wanted to leave it intact where it was, because if they lost the House, it was going to fall into the hands of the Republicans, and they thought that would be to our demise. But one of the things that Speaker McCarthy encouraged, and we did get done, was we need to pass a bill that increases the debt ceiling. Yes, we're going to pay our bills. Both sides of the aisle agree to that. We don't like how many bills we have, so we want to make some adjustments on how we spend. And so we passed the Limit, Save, and Grow Act, which we passed just with Republican votes in the House of Representatives, and the Senate did nothing. And I was doing another interview, and he said, well, the Senate didn't do anything because they want a clean debt ceiling. He said, well, they could have tried to pass that, but they didn't have the votes for that either. So it really set up what McCarthy was hoping to get at the beginning, which put us in a position to negotiate with the president directly. And that is what ended up taking place, in spite of the president saying over and over again, no, I just want a clean debt ceiling. That's all I accept. We can talk about the deficit later. And we're like, no, now is the time. And so we were able to do that. Did we get everything we wanted? No, but we got a lot of things that cut spending tremendously. So, and it's the Fiscal Responsibility Act, but it's a good first step as we head into appropriations, because that's really where it matters. And you can really cut the deficit when you evaluate how much is brought in revenue and how little you may spend or how much less you may spend. So this bill, though, was the largest deficit reduction package in American history. So we're on our way, and we got in the bill there will be no new taxes, which the president wants. It limits the growth of the government spending, so that if appropriations aren't done, the spending is cut 1% a year for the next year. Well, this is done anyway, and we got to get our appropriations bills done. So we really got some critical reforms. We stopped the president from hiring more IRS agents. We put a pause on we ended the pause on student loan repayments because of COVID. The government had said you don't have to pay your student loans. Well, now that's reactivated. It's time for them to start paying off their loans. And so with appropriations coming up, I think we're going to be in a good place to try and do more. Look, we put in work requirements for welfare for able-bodied people. There's no reason you can't be out working. And so it's going to be a requirement. This one is really big, too. We cut the red tape that speeds up federal permitting. Now, you just look along the Ohio River and the bridges that we have, and in particular over towards Cincinnati, the Brent Spence Bridge, which everybody's been wanting for years. The problem is that it takes over 4.5 years on average to get your permits. As this takes longer, the cost keeps going up. Matter of fact, at one time, the National Association of Manufacturers said that for every day this waits, it goes up $220,000 a day. So I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but that was their estimate. And so if you wait 4.5 years as opposed to 1 or 2, it costs even more and more. And so that was really important for us to get in so that we spend less. But, we did well in you said satisfied, right? And
yeah.
We really only control as a conference, as a Republican conference in the House of Representatives, we really only control and barely control 1/6 of this government process when you take the House, the Senate, and the White House. So I think we did pretty well. It's not perfect. It's not the entire conservative wish list, but we got a lot done, and I think it's just step one. And Speaker McCarthy had been talking about this for some time. Pass a bill, negotiate, go to appropriations next.
So you talk about appropriations. How long has it been since the House has actually passed the 12 appropriations bills?
Well, I know we did it under Paul Ryan, and we did it by October, which is what is expected and should be required. And we hope to do it again this term. And we've been working on these types of things. We've been evaluating what we should be doing for the last year and a half, 2 years, hoping that we would take back the House and run the show. And so, we've got that on our lap now. That's the work ahead of us. But, if we had rejected the deal that we had, the deal would have ended up in the hands of Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, and we probably would have had a clean debt ceiling increase that Biden wanted anyway. And I heard Thomas Massey say the same thing.
Yeah, I did too. And he's coming on Thursday to give his perspective. And look, I mean, he's taken some hits. I'm sure you have too, because there are some conservatives who are not happy with this. They feel like Republicans gave in. And there's some in the Freedom Caucus that feel that way. In fact, more Democrats actually voted for this bill in the House than did Republicans.
Yeah, well, let me tell you how that works. And I've seen this in the 10 years that I've been in Congress, and Thomas will probably tell you the same thing as we came in together. No matter how bad a deal Democrats get, they come out and say how wonderful it is, regardless. Look, they didn't get anything they wanted. They wanted a clean debt ceiling. None of the things that we put in there are something that they wanted. So the compromise came from the Democrats. But they're going to go out and, in a way, defend President Biden's negotiation by voting for it. But you do see some extremes on both sides that were screaming and yelling about this. The reality is we don't control everything. That would be an entirely different situation. We are a divided government right now. And I think to get the things that we got is a good first step. But we control the purse, and we need to do a good job with appropriations coming up. So I understand it's not what we want. It's not how we would run the country if we had the House and the Senate and the White House. And we got to get ourselves toward that and fight for that and come next November.
So when you talk about cutting, is it a reduction of what it was going to be, what it was scheduled to be, or are there actual cuts in different programs?
Yeah, so it's really, I think, a little bit of both as you look through it. Yeah, there's spending that's going to be on the table that it has been reduced. So are we still spending too much? Yes, we are. So we do have more to try and do to get towards a balanced budget for sure. So that's a good question, a fair question. And this doesn't cover all that. But it does reduce the amount of spending that was already in place.
So the 87,000 new IRS agents, does this stop that, reduce that? Tell us how that works.
So the way that stands right now is it doesn't give any money to it. So the president, it blocks the president from hiring more IRS agents for right now. Again, we've got to continue those fights, but at least for the next year in this deal, he cannot do it.
Yeah. Okay, and then so go to the permitting requirements on energy, because Carol Miller's really excited that the Mountain Valley Pipeline is going to continue, is going to get started back in West Virginia, and what that's going to mean for us. How does that work? I mean, what is in place, or what is being moved out of place so that these things can happen?
Well, it requires speeding things up, and that's one of the things that we saw really with Operation Warp Speed, is that we got to cut the bureaucracy and the red tape and the timeline, speed that up. But also we limit the number of pages these things can can have in place and also speed up the time. So that's really important. That, I think, is going to make a big difference. We shoot ourselves in the foot as a country time and time again because of things like that. You wait and wait and wait. As a matter of fact, I've got these old clips from Ronald Reagan, and he talks about it in the 70s, and he's talking about the environmental regulations that come into place. And so this brings it all together and gets things moving so that it has to be done sooner, more efficiently, with less paperwork. So I think that you're going to see some really good things come out of this. We also, on another front too, when it comes to getting projects done, we've expanded the work requirements for those that are on safety net programs that are healthy and have no reason not to be working. It really has an opportunity to lift more Americans out of poverty. So if you can get these projects moving and you can get people back to work, I think that's a win-win for everybody. Remember, people that go to work are taxpayers, and that certainly helps the entire situation altogether. So I think we've got more work to do for sure. It never ends, actually. But I think we got things in a good place to make a difference. And the permitting, to me, I think is a big deal for so many of the projects. And it's really for the first time in 40 years, it'll allow people to quickly reclaim, for example, American energy independence and build the needed infrastructure projects. So cutting that red tape makes a big difference.
Talk a little bit about this James Comer's committee and going after the FBI director, Christopher Wray.
Well, we have a lot of issues. I've been on Intelligence Committee now for 10 years. And the FBI just going to the Russian collusion narrative where they're claiming that Trump was colluding with Russians. As we found out, it was actually Hillary Clinton that planned this whole scandal, going through a law firm, going through an opposition research firm that hired Christopher Steele. And those are just some of the examples. The abuse of the FISA court getting warrants on people like Carter Page, and the Inspector General said they did this incorrectly like 17 times. You can go to the shooting at the baseball field where I was present, and the FBI came out and said, oh, this guy just wanted suicide by cop, even though he asked two people if this was Republicans. He was there for 2 months, and he had the names of Republicans in his pocket. These things have been going on with the FBI for some time and basically spying on Americans, and we are going to claw back on so many of these things and say, there's got to be punitive measures towards you, and you've got to come forward with the truth on what the FBI has been doing on so many fronts. And I give Jamie Comer a lot of credit for how hard he's working on this. But I can tell you a lot of this stuff we've known for some time. And I think Christopher Wray had the opportunity when he took over for James Comey that he could have cleaned up the FBI. You know, I used to adore the FBI. I grew up watching a show called The FBI on Sunday nights. But they, unfortunately, too many of them feel that they get to run the country and do whatever they want. And the agencies in general, in my mind, are way out of control. Our country started with 3 agencies, State, Treasury, and War. Now we have, HUD and HHS and Environment and the EPA, all these things that have regulatory power that basically they legislate. And in the case of the FBI, they're doing things that they don't feel Congress should have to know about. And that is completely inappropriate because we do have oversight over them, and we're going to move forward with that oversight and take some control back into the Congress.
Talking with U.S. Congressman Brad Wenstrup from Ohio, who is chair of a subcommittee on COVID origins. And talk a little bit about what's going on with that committee and when you guys are going to be continuing there.
Well, this is a select subcommittee, and we've got 2 years to do a lot of work. It's sort of a special assignment, if you will, and I have the honor of chairing it. But it's about the pandemic and the things that we did. It's an after-action review, lessons learned. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? But we also have to discover why some decisions were made. And if they were motivated for political reasons, if decisions were made for personal gain, that's a problem. Decisions should have been made based on science, et cetera. So one of the areas that we're dealing with right now, besides the origins of COVID that we're deeply involved with, we also want to look at the bills we passed and did they work, what was helpful, what was not. But right now we've discovered a relationship between the American Federation of Teachers and the CDC and the Centers for Disease Control, which should be politically agnostic and just out to give us the best guidelines for our health. And the CDC, I concluded already, needs real revamping. But there was a relationship between the Federation of Teachers, the Teachers Union, and the CDC, where the Teachers Union was giving their ideas for guidelines on school closures and when schools should close, and they wanted a trigger to close the schools. They wanted a trigger which would automatically shut down schools and keep them closed longer, possibly than necessary. And we did see that. We saw that those schools closed when other schools were open. Catholic schools were open. We saw that the risk was very, very low to almost nothing in the schools. But there was a relationship that was built between the teachers union and the Biden transition team. So that's one of the things we found out in the hearing, is that the teachers union was in touch with the Biden transition team early on and in touch with the CDC itself, and that the head of the teachers union had the phone number of the director of the CDC. We don't have that. Most of our members don't have it that I know of. And so we're seeking records, documents, communications between the teachers union and the CDC, between the CDC and all the phone records and calls and text messages that relate to school closures with the American Federation of Teachers, but with the Biden transitions team, and for that matter, the executive office of the president, because we have to make sure that our agencies are free of political influence, especially when it comes to the health of America. So we do have the director of the CDC coming in June 13th. We requested at the end of March documents and communications between the American Federation of Teachers and the CDC, and haven't gotten them yet. But there's seemingly going to be cooperative at this time, at least the teachers union is. And we had gone through quite a bit of negotiations just to get the head of the CDC to come and testify. And interestingly, as this is coming down, she has decided to resign at the end of the month, which doesn't exempt her from coming in even after that.
Yeah. So it's been more than 2 months since your request, and you hadn't gotten what you've asked for from CDC Director Walensky.
Yeah, the CDC, or through the Health and Human Services, they've been stonewalling legitimate congressional oversight for over 2 months. So we have outstanding requests for these documents. We do have subpoena power. You try to work without issuing a subpoena, but if necessary, then we go in that direction.
Well, let's hope you can get to some answers then. That'll be June 13th when she is going to appear, right?
Correct.
Okay, good deal.
That has finally been set.
Right.
We did get a date and a time finally set.
Good. Look forward to hearing about that then. All right, U.S. Congressman Brad Wenstrup from Ohio District 2. Sir, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
You bet, Tom. Thank you very much.